Afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Stowe Family Law Breakup Club. My name's Ashley. I'm one of the partners of the firm, and I'm going to be running this primarily today. You've all come to watch this webinar, and it's based on a beginner's guide to divorce. So hopefully myself and my colleagues here will be more than happy to give you some advice. So first things first, my name's Ashley. I'm one of the partners in the firm. I'm based in the Tunbridge Wells office, and I do all aspects of law. So children, divorce, all that kind of thing. Next, we've got Rebecca Spittles, who undertakes divorce coaching. So what I'll do is I'll pass you over to Rebecca, and she can sort of give you a rundown of herself.
Okay. Hi there, I'm Rebecca Spittles. I'm a divorce coach. I've been in practice since 2016. I guide individuals through the complexities of separation and divorce, the process, and ensure that you come out of it in one piece. I'm there to remove all the mystery, all the stigma, and the fear surrounding separation and divorce by providing expert knowledge, support, practical guidance, and reliable and honest resource for you.
Wonderful. Thanks, Rebecca.
Welcome.
Then we've also got Jodie Phelps, who's a financial planner. There you go, Jodie. Would you like to introduce yourself and what you're up to?
Hi, I'm a financial advisor. So I give clients financial advice day to day around retirement planning, how to grow their money, legacy planning. I specialise in helping clients who are going through divorce. I've been through a divorce myself, so I've had the kind of experience myself. But yeah, I'm really passionate about helping people become financially independent. And I love seeing clients go through that journey, you know, coming out the other side, because, you know, there is light at the end of the tunnel. But also really passionate about financial education. I feel like there's a lot of jargon when it comes to finances. So I like to work in a way where I try to make the complicated simple. So yeah, that's me.
Perfect. I think what you'll find is you've got three very like-minded people here. We're all very interested in just making sure that the transition through that entire process is as easy as possible. I think someone, you know, especially lawyers, get a sort of a depiction of they're only after your money or they're after this, and in reality that couldn't be further from the truth. My main focus is to make sure that you go through that process feeling as supported as possible and that you get what you're entitled to. And this isn't about money grabbing or trying to be cruel or create animosity. It's about making sure that at the end of all this you two can part as adults and make it, you know, as best for everybody. So I think that's what the focus of today is going to be, is trying to give that just initial advice where you should go. And I think you've got three very knowledgeable people here who can probably help you with those initial steps. So I just want to start really with some housekeeping. There is obviously a chat function. So if anyone's got any questions, more than happy, please put them in there. If we get time, we'll get to those. We'll have a good discussion, give as much advice as we possibly can. However, please keep it friendly. I can assume that everyone here wants to be here because they want to get a little bit of advice. You know, there is no need for any negativity. I'm very much going to keep this light and try and really give some positive messages. So hopefully we can all do that together. We've obviously gone through the introductions of everybody. And I think what we should dive into, if that's all right with you both, is some questions that we've already received.
Yeah, I'm happy with that completely.
Perfect. Thanks. All right. So we have a first question, which I think in reality is probably going to go right across all three of us, to be completely honest with you. And it starts with, what advice would you give to a woman in her late 70s thinking of seeking a divorce from her narcissistic husband in his early 90s? Is it a waste of time and money? I think an initial starting view, I think it's never a bad idea to take yourself out of a situation where you don't feel happy. I think fundamentally, nobody expects you to stay in a scenario where you are unhappy, regardless of your age, regardless of your circumstance. However, I can completely appreciate that that comes with a lot of emotion, a lot of emotional upset, with a lot of what happens to me, the unknown. Where am I going to go from here? So I think what we'll do there in that scenario is if we start with Rebecca, where would you start, Rebecca, if someone came to you with that sort of position?
Well, first of all, I want to repeat what you said about it's never a bad idea to make a change, no matter what your age. But it's vital that you are supported, and whether that's through counselling services, a very trusted friend or family member, a divorce coach, Those are going to be your starting blocks. And then it's all about information gathering, which goes for any divorce of any age. I think it's about focusing on what do you want to achieve by leaving, and grabbing independence for the time that you have. And I think it's about thinking about you have to put yourself in the picture and step away from the feelings of the other person, which is really hard. That doesn't mean you've got to fight them,
Right.
but it does mean that you have to go, right, what do I need from this? What do I want from this? And so focus very much on your emotional wants and needs, which can then take you into a really strong place to speak to somebody like Ashley and somebody like Jodie to understand I'm a big believer in knowledge is power at whatever age. Knowledge is power. I think as a coach in this situation, I would be really focusing on future proofing in a slightly different way than if it was somebody in their 30s or 40s. So, for example, income, what does that look like? How is that going to, because that's a massive, massive constraint for us. And that's where a really good lawyer comes into play.
Yeah, I quite agree. I mean, the reality of a situation where if a client came to me and she was that age would be, her initial thought is, what's going to happen? I've lived in this house maybe for a very long time. I'm very comfortable. Maybe we are reliant on one party's income. So there is a lot of immediate upset that comes out of that. And it's the instability I think people are most scared of.
Mm-hmm.
It's, I'm at a stage where I'm really comfortable. Maybe my family are all grown up and moved out. I see them regularly. Am I going to have to downsize to a lot smaller than what I've enjoyed? All of those kind of things. And in most circumstances, it is often going to be, yes, there is going to be change. And yes, maybe you're not going to live in the lovely big house that you had before. But my view is, the question mentioned the narcissism of the husband. That for me is, you need to create that separation, because there's no point in staying in that scenario and not enjoying your life at that point. It doesn't give anybody, any level of enjoyment. Your family will know that you're unhappy. You will know that you're unhappy. There comes a point where you'll be better off separating, bit of comfort, but knowing that the rest of that time is yours to do with it what you wish. And I think that's the better option. And that's where I'd probably go in that scenario. Mm-hmm. My advice is never going to be, oh, stay there, be unhappy, and next person in line. It just doesn't work like that. And then we obviously have Jodie here, who's probably in a really good position to talk about a client of that age and how she might be able to assist.
Yeah, I've had a client with a similar age go for it recently, and I think you can't put a price on happiness, and especially if there's abuse there, like stepping away from that. If people are living longer, hopefully you'll still have a long time to live, and I think the sooner that you step away and manage to sort it, the more free you'll feel. So I think what will help from a financial side is just really understanding your finances, like understand what's in place, just so you can start to think about actually what could the future look like. And I think if you can see some kind of way, that will probably help you get the confidence. But I would just advise you to have some strong professionals around you. And yeah, I don't think age comes into it. I think that life's too short and there's always a way out. But yeah, good luck.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Not everyone wants to dive straight into solicitors. I understand that completely. So in that scenario, I think maybe a conversation with Rebecca is the perfect starting point.
Sorry, Ashley.
After you, Rebecca.
There's a lot of clients nowadays that we work with within the coaching field that come to us before they've even made the step to leave. Right. So you don't have to access a divorce coach because of the fact you are in a divorce. Sometimes it's a discussion. you know, and it's not, divorce coaches are not here to get you divorced in the same way that
No.
family lawyers are not here to get you divorced. If you're there and you need the help, then we are there at that point. So, you know, regardless of your age, we are in place to support you. And yeah, go and see somebody and chat through, okay, what do I need this to look like?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's just having that network around you. And I think what people, unfortunately, what happens is when you say you're going to go through it, there's always someone in your close net circle who's oh, I've been divorced, or my friend's been divorced, and they give you this advice that's tailored to that scenario.
Always.
Every scenario is different. Even if you and your colleague or friend, or whoever it may be, is identical, there's some difference. There just is.
And that's the, you know, fundamentally why I exist in my space, because I went through my own divorce, and everybody, you know, my friends were fabulous and I never criticized them for it, but they were my friends. So they wanted me as a human. They've got their own issues, and we all bring our stuff. When we get into these situations, we bring our stuff with us. So, you know, if you tell a friend, I want to get a divorce, and they go, wow, you're 70. That's ridiculous. Just stay put. What's the point now? Well, you know, you've done it this long. Well, yeah, so what?
Oh, yeah.
So what? You've done it this long, so now is the time to make a change.
Right. You know, and you just think, she's 70 now, according to the question. How long has that feeling been?
Yeah, precisely.
That's, you know, that could be a 5 to 10 year period. And me personally, you know, I'm 38 years of age. I don't have that level of life experience. However, all I know is spending one more day unhappy is one day too many.
Yeah, agreed.
It's the kind of thing that whoever you may be, genuinely advise you that there's a new chapter for you.
Mm-hmm.
I think
don't be scared.
Absolutely correct. I think fear is a huge part. Huge. People are so terrified of change and the age and all that kind of thing, but there is always a way out. Always. And there is a way that we can, any combination of a team of, you know, us three or one of us on our own would be able to guide you through that.
I feel as well, what I find is the whole, before you enter the process, it can feel so daunting. And what I say to my clients is actually, rather than thinking about the whole thing, like, oh my gosh, I've got to go through this big divorce, it's just thinking of little things you can do each day. So for you, it might be, do you know what, I'm going to tell my friends, I'm going to tell my friends and family, or then it could be, actually, I'm going to have a look at, you know, what accounts we've got, but giving yourselves little steps. And this is what I say, even throughout the divorce process, you know, suddenly you're a year on and, you know, you're really not end, or you've done it and you think, wow. Yeah. But I think at the beginning, so many people can feel so scared and anxious because it's this big thing that is unknown. But I think if you just think about the little things you can do and just gradually find your way, it all becomes a lot easier.
Couldn't agree more. It can feel very overwhelming, especially in a scenario where maybe you haven't expected it. That's exceptionally difficult to have to deal with. So little steps, and before you know it, exactly like Jodie says, it will be over. That new chapter will be started, and you'll think, right, I did it the right way. I acted like an adult. There was no need for pettiness or raised anything. It just, we managed it as a pair of adults.
Yeah.
So that's excellent. Thank you both ladies for that. So next question. Separated from spouse after a long marriage with 2 teenage children. He has been the breadwinner, although we own a business together. And mum has been a stay-at-home mother. He has left the house and she is paying all the bills and looking after the children, currently receiving a minuscule amount of child support and a potential withholding of assets. Okay, so the lawyer in me immediately goes, right, you are the kind of person that needs to have a conversation with a lawyer at least to understand what you're entitled to, what is reasonable as to what he's doing at the minute and what is not, how child maintenance is worked out and how you are entitled to it, the withholding of assets. It's just that initial information. And what most lawyers would do, and I know we do, is we offer that 1 hour appointment, and within that you can get a lot of that information in one go. Now, what I often then say is, I say, don't come back to me this week, next week. go away, take that information and really think that through as to exactly what you want to do next. Now, that doesn't suit every scenario. If I've got somebody who's come in and they are earning nothing and the bills are piling up and the mortgage isn't being paid, then yes, the advice is completely different. And it needs to be handled differently, but that advice can be given in that way. But in this scenario, it's information is the key. It just is. You need to know that child maintenance is something you are entitled to. That's not, does he wish to pay it or not? You're entitled to it. And if those children are residing with you, you can make sure that you get what you're entitled to. The child maintenance service is there. It's got a calculator. They will even walk you through it on the telephone if that's what you prefer. In terms of you being a stay-at-home mother, does that mean that your claim is reduced? No, it does not. The way the law looks at it is that you are as key to that marriage as the main breadwinner is. And I think a lot of people struggle with that and go, but I've earned everything and I've done everything. But the reality is you were able to do that because in most cases, the wife was able to support at home and provide that support for the children and the support you needed to go and do business meetings or whatever it may be. And your role is not diminished in any way, shape or form. So what I don't want is this individual thinking that just because they've earned the most and they've got the control of that kind of thing, that gives them the right to treat you any way they choose. So for me, that is most certainly an appointment. There is a way out of that. That's as much as I don't want to diminish the question, it's very bread and butter for a lawyer.
Yeah.
This is the kind of thing that we hear a lot. So I want you to have that conversation to understand what you can do. And that knowledge, just the amount of people that say to me after an appointment, I feel that weight's been lifted. I know what I can do. I know the next steps. I know where to go. And that's so invaluable. And even if that point you don't want to instruct a lawyer, that's fine. If you've got the information to know, to see the red flags, to stop certain things happening, that's more important often than diving in with both feet. So let's go to Rebecca. What advice would you give?
I think this is a hugely emotional subject, and I work with men and women, but what I will say is it's more of a question that I get from women, but it's about not being afraid of the word entitled. I have a lot of my people that come and talk to me and say, well, I don't want to say entitled because I don't want to take everything. I don't need everything. I just want this. I just want to be okay. And so it's about moving that mindset from I've earned this too, just in a totally different way. As you so rightly said, Ashley, you may have been the one doing the kind of more house-based stuff in order to get the partner ready to go on these trips, or making sure parents' evening's been attended for the teenagers, and all of those kinds of things. They are equally valuable. And I think it's really important to take it step by step, get the information, but don't feel try not to feel overwhelmed. That's not the right phrase. It's looking at it and going, I know what I'm entitled to. That does not make me a money grabber. I'm not doing anything illegal. I'm not taking anything that isn't mine. I'm sharing what I have earned in this place. And so it is very much a mindset. And that's a way that then can keep you calm.
I couldn't agree more. I think here's a free piece of legal advice for anyone watching. The way that the judges and the law deals with it in this country is they will give you what you need. Okay. So what that means is if you need a 3-bedroom property because you're primarily going to have the children, that's where the court's focus is going to be. So because he might be the main earner and he's now demanding that you pay the bills, and a judge is going to go, no, I want to make a scenario where these children, as the priority, as they normally are in a divorce, if there are any, these children need a roof over their head and they need an arrangement where those bills are met and there is no stress. Now, are they going to put one party so out of pocket that they live under a bridge? No. However, if there are assets and money's available, they are going to make sure that it's fair for both, not just one. And I think there is so much messaging from parties in divorces that don't go after that. It's mine. You're not entitled to it.
Agreed.
You won't get it. Honestly, I hear it every day. And I think
Likewise.
people's freedom is, I say to them, what a load of nonsense. Just nonsense.
Yeah,
And,
great.
and that sort of feeling, and they go, oh, thank you for that. And I'm like, it's such a shame that people think they're even entitled to say that to people.
I know.
That's my business. That's, you know, I've always paid for everything, therefore I'm going to take everything.
Yeah.
Over my dead body, right? That's not how this works. So I think that it's just the messaging is so important. It's what you need to live comfortably.
Yeah. And can I ask you a lawyer question, Ashley, as well, while we're here? Because the thing that I hear most from my a lot of things I get from my clients that are in this predicament will go, well, my husband's told me it's 50-50, that's it. And,
Right.
and I'm not going to be able to survive on that. That's not, I can't do that. I can't pay half the bills. I can't do, and I, you know, I think it's really important that, because I know the answer to this, but I think it's really important that we reiterate the point that that's the starting point, isn't it? 50-50 is the starting point.
Yeah. And I think what people hear that and go, right, the starting point, but that's not enough for me. Exactly.
Yeah.
You are completely right. It isn't enough. But the judge will firstly look at, right, if I split everything down the middle, could that work?
Yeah.
And if the answer is no, then it's not going to be 50-50. No? Very rarely is it 50-50 in a scenario where one party is a main earner, the other party stays at home and looks after the children. The children are, let's say, 7 and 10. It's going to be a scenario where both parties will get out of it at the end that's fair. It might not just feel that way to maybe the higher earner to begin with, right?
Yeah,
because
agreed.
The court's priority is the children. Them having a home, them having hot water, all of that is way more important than what rental you choose to live in if you're going to move out. So for this individual, the only thing that's sort of raised my ear is that she's paying all the bills. The only thing I'd say there is, can you afford to do that? If you cannot afford to do that, and the other party was the person paying before they left, we can potentially put you back in that scenario. They've created the status quo. They paid the bills for all those years, and it's fair and reasonable that they continue to do so until we reach the end of this. So I do not want you putting yourself and those children on the breadline unnecessarily. So I think the advice goes back to have a conversation. A lawyer would sort that for you without too much of a fight, I don't think. All right.
Excellent.
Comment on that one, Jodie?
Yeah, I was just going to say, again, the biggest misconception I have is when they think that, you know, oh, he's got this big pension, I've only got a little one, he's got that, he said, I can't have any of his. And it's actually, you know, your marital assets are what you both has as jointly. So I think that's a big thing to kind of get your head around. I would definitely recommend having a look at what your entitlement is to any benefits, child maintenance. And the other thing I'd just say is a financial advisor we can help with helping you understand what your need is, because like Ashley said, actually the court will look at what your need is, but it's really hard to know what your need is. So things like creating a budget planner, you know, how much are you spending on food, holidays, bills, and, you know, when you do then come to negotiate, if you're doing it with or without solicitors, it's actually having a look at how does that look beyond divorce? Is that enough? And I feel like people can be so short-sighted because they just want it done because they're stressed that they forget the long term. And it's someone, you know, a coach or financial planner, we can come in and see it like subjectively, objectively, and actually help them realize that actually what does that look like for them long term. But yeah, a lot of advisors will offer like a no obligation initial free meeting as well, where actually just helping understand what your assets are and what your needs are can be really, really helpful at the beginning of a divorce process.
Absolutely. I think that's, and they, you know, all three of us sort of bleed together in that regard. You know, I'm thinking you need to take the advice to understand it. You are completely right, Jodie. having a planner to show what is reasonable to ask for on a monthly basis to meet your outgoings is the bare minimum that you should have.
Yeah.
I think the scariest sentence that people say to me is anything for an easy life.
Yeah, 100%.
Right? Because sure, you make it easy now, you don't want to fight, you don't want to argue, you walk away with half, let's say 50-50.
Yeah.
And what you very quickly learn is one party is very comfortable and the other is not.
Mm-hmm.
And that it scares the life out of me because I don't like that phrase. I
No.
don't think I understand why, from an emotional perspective, protecting children, all of those kind of things. But a little bit of let me tell you what the next 10 years looks like is often enough for people to go, oh,
yeah,
right.
And I think there's something I do it with my clients a lot. A really useful tool for you is to sit still for a minute, grab a bit of paper and think about if I do this now, 5 years from, like if I look at this in 5 years time, say for example, you've just taken the deal to get it done, right? And that's where your mindset is. And then in 5 years time, I'm just going to go really extreme here. He's on a yacht off the coast of Barbados, having a lovely old time, and you are only just managing to cover your mortgage payment or perhaps your utility bills. You are not going to feel like you're glad it was over by that point. You are going to, and there's nothing you can do. So you can't go back 5 years and go, well, actually, I don't agree with that order now because I've had some space. And I think you have to think about it now and future-proof yourself, regardless of your age.
Yeah.
You need to future-proof yourself so that you don't have those, and that helps us with resentment, that helps us with bitterness. It's not just a financial decision, it's an emotional decision. And I think that, that's something that I would really urge you to try and do. Think about your life 5 years from now.
Yeah, and that's where most lawyers will start. It's like, okay, you walk away today and you don't have to deal with them anymore. And then in 3 weeks, exactly like you say, he goes and buys a fantastic, lovely new car, or she,
Yeah, absolutely.
And you go, oh, if only. And by that point, it's too late. So it's, we don't tell you these things because I'm trying to take money out of your pocket. I genuinely don't. It's all about, I couldn't sleep at night if I knew you took something that wasn't right for you.
Yeah.
And most commonly as well, it's the short-sightedness of pensions because a lot of the time people think, oh, I just want the house. I don't care about, that. And actually, once you sit with a financial advisor and see actually what impact that has on later life, it's very different. So I think it's easy to kind of think short-term, house is all that matters. But I think it's, like you say, you just need to think about the future you and look after the future you. And
literally that.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. All right, next question, which I think is a very Jodie based one, so I think that'll be good.
Mm-hmm.
Ex-couple discussing their financial settlement where the husband has managed the money side throughout the relationship. So I suppose the most important thing there is clarity to know exactly what the assets are.
Yeah.
It's very common that one party manages the finances, and it's very common for the other party to then go, I've got not a clue what we've got.
Yeah.
So I think perfect example is speaking to someone like Jodie.
Yeah. So sorry, this is a man who wants to start a divorce process, and did you say he's the main person that manages the money? Was that
it's quite vague, to be honest. It just sort of says, look, there's a couple discussing their financial settlement.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
He has managed the money side throughout the relationship.
Yeah.
So I suppose the question arising out of that is, how is it best to approach a settlement in that scenario where you don't have a full financial picture?
I would probably advise them to both get separate people as well. And because you want, like for me, like as an advisor, I'm there to look after my client as number one. So I feel like doing that bit separately would be probably good. I think a lot of the clients I see have had nothing to do with money ever. And they 20, 30 years, they've never had anything to do with any finances. So a big part of the, the work we do would be just financial education, because we don't get taught this stuff at school or college. No one really knows anything about money unless you've worked in the industry or, had parents who have taught you really well. So I think that it comes to kind of basics and actually understanding together what the assets are, both kind of getting advice separately,
Yeah.
and going from there,
And
really.
And
the first, yeah, after you, Rebecca, go on.
sorry, no, I was just going to say, from a kind of holistic approach, looking at this, if you are the person that's in charge of the money, then make sure that you start to share that information, not in an overwhelm, here's a spreadsheet and here's all the logins, as in, you know, if getting a divorce is what you think is important, then be proactive. Get this all sorted out in a way that's digestible for another person, so that when you say, I'm really sorry, I want to end this marriage, it's not what I want anymore, and their panic is, oh my God, money, you've dealt with everything, you can go, no, it's okay. I've looked into that. There's nothing to hide here. And transparency is key in divorce. And that's where the sometimes we can get the friction, you know. Ashley knows this, Jodie knows this. But when it comes to finances, if you know you are that person in your relationship, in your marriage, then take away that anxiety for the other person, and it's a really, really good starting point, because that other side immediately go, right, okay, I'm hurt, I'm really angry, or whatever those emotions are. However, they are thinking about me. They do care about me. They're just not in love with me anymore because they've done this. And that's about, you know, looking at it and then being able to ask questions to that, not being defensive about it. If you've done a spreadsheet, say, for the other side, and they ask you questions, it's not about, don't cross question me. You've got to be open and go, yeah, no, true, actually, you've never dealt with this. This means this. And that can be such a good way to start a path of a really, I don't know what the right word is, straightforward, could I call it, divorce? That's when you've both been an adult. It's an adult divorce.
Careful. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really tricky one, that one, isn't it?
It certainly is. But I think then there's so many ways to look at it. I would love everybody to come into me and say, right, here's everything.
Yes.
I've got it. This is what it is. Let's figure it out. Now, would my job be as much fun? Probably not, right? But the reality is, I don't want to take people to court to fight about things that they should just give each other. That's, you know, it's so much more simple if you go, you know what? Here's how much is in my pension. Now, pensions are a completely separate thing that you must take independent advice on. But money's in houses, money's in bank accounts. If I can sit there and go, right, here's your scenario, let me guide you through it, it makes everything so much more simple.
Mm-hmm. It will make everything cheaper as well. So I think the amount of time people spend going back and forth because they're hiding things, and if they were just transparent from day one, their solicitors' costs are going to be so much less. So they're helping themselves out.
And that's fundamentally correct. You know, I don't have to go digging and go through your bank statements with a fine-tooth comb and say, right, where's this money gone? Where's that money gone? If somebody is fundamentally just open about all of it. And I want that for everybody. It's not the way it goes. Someone will often come to me and say they are completely closed shop. They will give you nothing. Well, in that scenario, I will have to ask them to disclose all of that. They will, whether they want to or not, whether we have to go to court to get it, you will see it. But is it worth spending £20,000 each, which could go on your child's university education, or whatever you want it for the sake of just giving each other that information? It drives me insane. So it's the kind of thing to think of. Now, there's another factor in that. Now, don't be offended if you've given all of that information to your other partner and they still go and ask legal advice, right? They are entitled to check that that is all correct. It is not a disrespectful thing to do. It is not a personal attack on you.
Agreed.
Now, if I check it and it's all good and you back it all up, then the next thing I'm going to say is they were completely open and honest. They want to settle this, and I believe them.
Yeah.
So I'm not now going to entrench my position and go, right, let's figure this out, and let's, you know, that's not what I'm about. So coming to the table, being open is super important. Don't be offended if the other person still wants to check that that's correct.
And I think that's really important, that it, you know, because I've sometimes spoken to people and they've come to me and said, well, you know, we were doing it amicably and then they got a solicitor. It's your right as a human being to make sure that you are getting the right advice. for your new individual life. So it's not about, you know, drawing swords. It's not about drawing. Seeing a solicitor, I advise every single person, I recommend to every person that walks through my door, if you haven't had some really basic legal advice, I really think you should. And you know, because then you really know with absolute clarity what your position is. And I understand there's financial constraints around that. And I think I've got another question for you, Ashley. What would your recommendation be to somebody who did not have funds for litigation, but knew that somebody wasn't being honest about their what they've got?
And
because everything is a voluntary process up to court.
Of course, you know, and that's the other important point. If money is a big deal here and you've only got so much, then trust me, mediation is a really good process. If mediation doesn't work, let's knock this on the head as quickly and efficiently as possible. Because the reality is, yes, solicitors can be expensive, but the only time they are expensive is when somebody is playing silly games.
Yeah.
That's the reality. If we all come with open eyes and honesty, you would go a lot less out the door and start that new chapter way sooner.
Yeah, quicker.
I think that's probably the best thing to come out of that question, is just be open and honest.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, next question. Wanting to divorce but feeling guilty and selfish as wife is a good person and about her financial future has earned considerably more. First things first, thank you for that. Right? I don't often get a lot of people going, you know what, I'm a little bit worried about the other person. That is the perfect way to start a divorce.
Oh, right? Isn't it?
It's, you know, it's a beautiful way to go, you know what, I don't want to see my wife out of pocket or struggling or anything like that. And that feeling of guilt is so common. So common, and especially in a scenario where maybe you've just fallen out of love.
Yeah,
that's hard, and your attitude is admirable. So it very much leads into the question we've just had. Be open and honest. Be completely open and honest. Come to her with that information. Say, I don't want this to be a stressful situation. I want us both to walk away and start new chapters and it not be a problem. I want that for everybody. After you, Rebecca.
I think it's important as well to remember that when you are the person that's made the decision to leave, it doesn't make it any less painful for you. It's still, you know, it is still a blooming difficult decision to make. Nobody wakes up just off the cuff one morning and goes, I'm done. If you've reached the point where you feel that a divorce is the only way forward, you have done so much soul searching that there is nowhere else left to go. But the reason I highlight this is because if you are hitting somebody with that information, this may be completely new to them. And so the thing you can give them over and above anything else is space, choice, and time. That's not to say you lapse it for the next 12 months and you just wait, because we'll never be ready to do this. But, you know, being clear with your language, you know, I want you to be okay, but not giving false promises around the, like, you know, sometimes people will say, well, you know, I just said, we'll give it 6 months to see how we get on because I didn't want to see them upset anymore. That's not going to help you. You need to be clear. The clients of mine that come forward that have recovered quicker from their divorces when their other person in the marriage has been very clear with their communication and said, this isn't working for me, I am done. I appreciate you need time to process this, and I'll answer any questions you've got. However, there is no going back. And I think you owe it to yourself and the person that you may have had children with, spent a lot of time with, where you've committed to marry them. You owe it to them to be straightforward.
I think as well, like the whole guilt scenario. So I always say to people who are in that scenario, like, actually, what's the alternative? That your wife is then with someone who doesn't really love her. Like, she deserves that happiness and to be loved. So actually, rather than, oh, you feel guilty, actually it's the best thing by her. I just saw as well, I think someone's just written in the chat just about the children's side of it, so maybe we touch on that. But I think again, it's kind of thinking long term, like, you know, it's going to be tough for children, especially when they are older and they do understand. I think actually being quite, you know, open with them and kind of talking to them throughout is the key, because I think children pick up so much more than we think. But also just thinking about the other side of it, and actually once you have divorced and you're in your separate lives, the children will then have two happy parents. You know, it sounds cliche, but like, and you know, for me, I was like, I've got two children, 7 and 10, and the thought of having us as an example of what a marriage should be like was like, I don't want them to see that as the example. So I think actually by coming out of a toxic relationship or an unhappy marriage, I feel like you're doing the right thing by them, because actually they'll see what, you know, a healthy relationship is and happy parents. So
totally agree with that,
nothing
Jodie.
financial there, but just
no. I think it's great though, because yes, absolutely. We are modeling every day to our children, like whether we like it or not. If we've got children, that's what we're doing. And we want to be saying to them, you can make change. Like, big change is scary, but we're going to be okay. And, you know, talking to children, it's about working out age appropriate. You know, you may have a particularly switched on 6-year-old, equally you might have a very young 10-year-old. Listen to them. How are they going to process this information? What's the best way to share it with them? But the key to all of it is reassurance, reassurance, reassurance. This is all going to be okay, kids. It's going to be different and it's going to be hard. Let's not pretend. Let's not try and make it all sugary sweet and sprinkled with unicorns, because that's not real life and they're not going to thank you for that. But being calm and consistent and loving, and not, and I'm, you know, Ashley will probably know this better than anybody, do not talk about the other parent to the children in a negative way, ever. Like, there is never a reason for that to be okay. And I mean, anyone that works with me in here will know I am an absolute tyrant over it. Stay away from social media and stay away from moaning about your ex to your children, regardless of their age. No good ever comes of it.
And, you know, I've done this for a very long time now. And the example I give to people is, say, you know, let's use Jodie's example. I think you said you've got a 10-year-old there, Jodie. Let's say in 15 years' time, 20 years' time, they're probably going to get married. Now, are you going to be able to be civil enough to be in a room and focus on them? Not you, not that animosity, not that upset. And it's like, you two have to parent these children forever.
Yeah.
So whatever the upset is, you are going to have to park some of it.
Absolutely.
I will happily talk to you if someone is acting particularly cruelly, unfairly, and I will guide you through that. Now, not every scenario is, as I've explained, all butterflies and rainbows, right?
No.
But the reality is, if I can get you to a situation where at least you can be in a room with somebody, that is my goal.
Yeah.
I do not want to do underhand tactics. I don't want to be disrespectful. I don't think there's any reason for us to go down paths that we don't need to cause unnecessary upset. And if we can get you to the end fairly and reasonably, and if we go back to the question how open this gent clearly has been, walk in the park. Walk in the park, because that's where I want to get you. And he's got a great attitude from the very beginning. All right, now there was a bigger part of that question that was all about how would the family home be divided, how would everything be split. That is very unique to every scenario. If you've been together for 30 years and all the children are adults, that starting point is 50-50. It's very unlikely to deviate from that kind of settlement. If there are young children, if there is all these other things, it's too wide. I'd be here for 2 days explaining every different scenario of how that would work out. So I think if you're looking for specifics about how things are divided, that's probably myself and the ladies here to give you some guidance on what that would look like. I know we've got a few questions in the Q&A, so why don't we move to those? Oh, let's do that. We've got
Let's have a little look.
Having given over 6 months written notice for my ex-husband to move his things, he left me in April 2024. I'm needing a knee operation and now have a date of the 20th February, and I need access to the kitchen and toilet, but his things block my way. Okie dokie, that's quite specific.
Mm.
So the reality of the situation is, oh goodness, I've seen every scenario you can imagine. So I'm trying to give you some very careful advice.
Mm-hmm.
If there are things in your way and there is space in the house to move them to, the first thing I advise you to do is take photographs of absolutely everything exactly as it is, right? Then move it to wherever you're going to move it to, and then take photographs again of when you've got it to that position, right? And I know that sounds completely over the top, but I've had, he broke this, she broke that, something's missing, something's gone. And I just think that moving those items is so important for you to be able to feel like you can use your own home. Do not leave them outside.
Yeah.
As a promise to me, do not leave anything outside, because believe it or not, I've had it where the police knock on the door and that is criminal damage. I find it hard to believe, but please, please, please don't leave stuff outside.
And equally, don't leave it somewhere damp or
Quite
inappropriate. I know that
those
sounds
in hand.
obvious, but you kind of feel like
Yeah.
I've seen this a lot, and it's like, don't leave it in a shed, don't leave it in a barn, you know, put it somewhere
No.
warm and dry and safe.
Absolutely. Now, if they refuse to remove it, you're probably going to need someone like myself to write to them, ask them to do that. Do they have to do it? No. So you find yourself in a bit of a difficult situation. But moving them into a safe place, a garage, something of that nature, as long as nothing is damaged, I've got no problem with you doing that whatsoever.
Yeah, agreed.
Okie dokie.
Next question.
Right. Let's go to the next one. So, if someone has started a divorce application after enduring an abusive relationship, first things first, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
And then faces more abuse during the divorce process, what should they do? I think the perfect first discussion is for somebody like Rebecca. And no support.
Yeah, come and see somebody like me who
Absolutely.
really understands it from every angle, both personally and professionally, and can signpost you if you need further support, you know, to domestic abuse support. But also remember, and this is something that's very difficult when you're coming through one of these relationships, that when it comes to divorce, less is more with regards to contact. So if they are being abusive, and honestly, it breaks my heart to hear these things, you do not have to reply. So if they're just sending you abusive, you know, oh, you're going to take half of everything and you're going to do this and you're that, just please don't feel the need to reply. If they get really bad, go to the police. You know, if it's mounting up and but this is a very difficult one, I think. It's something that needs really careful handling, and you need to feel supported and measured, I think, is probably the word I would use, Ashley.
Yeah, agreed. And
I've seen a case before where if you are, like Rebecca says, to stop answering and they keep going, if it goes to the police, it shows that it's very one-sided and it's malicious
intent. Exactly that.
Yeah. Whereas if you're replying and saying this, that half the time, it's, you know, it could look like
it's very difficult to balance it. Absolutely.
So I would agree with what you said there, Rebecca.
Absolutely. And what you often find also is that maybe you're in this relationship, so this individual knows how to treat you to make you feel that way.
Exactly that.
Right? If you come to someone like me, you get a completely different response, because now control is taken away.
Yeah.
I write them and go, what do you think you're doing? This is how it's going to be. You don't get to say how this goes anymore. That kind of person hates that.
And that's where sometimes it's really important as that person to sort of hunker down and go, right, this is not going to last forever. This person is being told by a official person not to behave in a certain way, and they are not going to like it. But that makes it even more important that you don't in any way reply or retaliate. No matter how desperate you are to get your voice heard, your time will come, I promise you.
Yeah, and that's it. So for me, if you are feeling that controlled and you're feeling that, you know, like we discussed a long time ago now, that you're just going to do anything for an easy life, that is now the time to come and speak to one of us. Because it's like, no, this abuse is not acceptable, and we will ensure that you walk away with what you're entitled to. Right, let's have a look here. There are a couple of really long ones. I'm not going to get to those today. However, what I think we might do is we might talk up about maybe a mock-up session.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll go through the questions, us three. Maybe we'll talk to the firm. I don't know how that's going to work.
We can do that.
I want to get round to answering some of these. You've been so excellent and engaging everybody out there that I don't want you to feel that you haven't at least got some little bit of guidance. So if I don't get to that today, we will figure out a way to come back to you. I can assure you of that. Okay. Right, there's one here. Session, first things first, very kind of you. I have an 11-year-old and a 19-year-old. If we did divorce, then is it logical to assume the wife gets more than 50%? I'm assuming for a man, 50% is usually the best case when there is an 11-year-old in the picture. No, I think it's a common misconception, but it's also dependent on circumstance. Now, there is an 11-year-old. I suppose the first thing that I would question is, who is that 11-year-old going to stay living with primarily? If that is going to be with mum, then yes, the very, very varied and wide answer is she may well end up with more than 50% now, but in the long term, it will work out fairly. So there is something in the law here that's called a measure order, for example. So you can allow parent and children to stay living in the house until the youngest is 18. Now, that may mean that you're paying the mortgage for another 6 years in a house that maybe you're not living in. I understand that fundamentally that doesn't feel very fair. However, what the court then does is at the point of 18, you get usually 50% of that property. And the way that's dealt with is to fundamentally show you that those contributions you've made, you get back at the end. So it's, unfortunately for you, it's not as black and white as yes or no. It's circumstantial, but I don't want any, I think a lot of men probably feel that way. Is my wife going to get everything and I'm going to be left with nothing? No, that is not the stock answer in this area of law. It just is not. So individual advice, and that's the best way to go at that.
Yeah.
Does anyone want to jump in on that one?
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, one thing that drives me mad is when everyone assumes it's because they're a woman, and I'm like, it's not because they're a woman. It's because they're the, 9 times out of 10, it's because they've been the lower earner and they've looked after the children. It doesn't matter if the man's earns less money and stays at home. It would be that he would get, could get more. It's just, it's not about,
it's not gender.
I know. And that's one thing, so, your wife's going to take all your money if you divorce. I'm like, that's not the case. Firstly, it's your joint money, but secondly, that might, in this day and age, actually, I've had clients where it's the other way around and the woman's a higher earner. So it's not about gender, but yeah, sorry, got to jump in there.
No, you're completely right.
I think gender bang on.
Is the wrong word. I think we live in a society where we're still coming out of the age where man goes to work, woman has children, and that's sort of the idea. We couldn't be moving further away from that now.
Yeah.
I have so many clients where the male is the gent who stays at home. Mm-hmm. It's got nothing to do with gender. I just want to echo that completely. Every case is individual, and it is about the circumstance. So please don't fall into the old trap of, because she's my wife, she's going to get everything.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it couldn't be further from the truth. Now, circumstantially, that may be what happens. Your wife is going to have the children. She is the lower earner, and therefore that's the way the law will lean. But it's not a stock answer. I think that's the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah. And when, for example, if it's 2 men or 2 women, again, the same applies. This gender's not an issue. It's more actually how the money side of things works to make a fair outcome at the end of it.
And also the length, and I think it's also important to say about the length of relationships. relate the length of marriages. You know, if you've been in a long marriage, it is going to be different to somebody who's been married for 2 years.
Yes.
You know, that's going to be one of these factors that we've all been talking about tonight, that, you know, there's a starting point, there's a finish point, and there's unfortunately no equation to work it out.
No.
Which would
that's, you know,
leave you out of a job, Ashley.
Well, this is the thing, you know, don't give everyone too much information, please. But they're the biggest factors for me. I think whenever you go into a divorce, and this is for anybody, length of relationship before you were married, how long you were married, children, and then the assets sort of fall under that heading. But those big factors there are the massive ones that really change how this is going to end.
Yeah.
So just bear that in mind. I am genuinely sorry that we're not going to get to absolutely everybody today. There are some practical questions, and I'm probably just going to answer myself. I'm going to take the time to come back to you and just answer those, because you're clearly asking for a bit of help here. And we're here for an hour, and we'll do a mop-up session, or I will directly answer those questions. I will make sure of it.
I'm directly answer questions as well.
And likewise here, please feel free to get in touch. No problem whatsoever. I think it's important.
So we'll have another conversation after today. We'll see how us three are going to sort of help these individuals we haven't been able to get to. And I assure you that anyone that's asked a question here, we will come to you.
Absolutely, 100%.
So let's go. Let's say we're winding down. So Jodie, what would you say are your top tips for anybody thinking about starting a divorce, and they were going to come to you? What would you think first?
So I would say try to understand your assets. What have you got in savings? What have you got in current accounts? What is there in pensions? Maybe get your house valued if you own a property. Also looking at your lending capacity, so how much you could borrow. So mortgage advisors can give you this information. So just to start thinking about your future. Top thing I'll always bang on about is a budget planner. Understanding like the amount of people I speak to, and I say, what have you got coming in and what have you got going out? And even people who aren't getting divorced, no one seems to know this. It's very rare that someone says, actually, this is exactly what I've got coming in and this is what I've got coming out. So I think understanding what's coming in, understanding what's going out. And then a step further than that is thinking about actually once you're on your own, what could your outgoings look like? What could a house cost that you may need? So it's kind of thinking about financially where you are and financially what could next look like. But the more prepared you are with this stuff is when you go and get advice from a solicitor or a mediation or a financial advisor, you're already one step ahead of the game, because this is what a lot of us spend time doing with our clients, is helping them get to this point.
And let me tell you now, if you do it with Jodie, you don't need to do it again with me. If Jodie does that and comes to me and it's as clear and concise as I know it would be, it gives me a fantastic head start to go, right, here's the law. Here's based on what you've given me, is what is going to happen. So fantastic advice. Thank you, Jodie.
Okay.
And what about yourself, Rebecca? What do you think? If someone was going to come and have a conversation with you, what would you like them to sort of have in mind before they book that in?
So I think that, well, mine's kind of more top tips. I mean, if they're going to come and see me, come as you are. Bring a blanket, book a Zoom, and we can pick it apart. I think things you can do if that's not an option for you is to reach out to others, whether that's looking into charities that can support, Citizens Advice Bureau, domestic abuse support, all of those things. There is lots and lots and lots of help out there. Stowe has there's great content on Stowe that you can access, and other websites. Be very selective in the people around you that you share your information with, because there is a tendency, if you're in this point and you're at bursting point, that you just go blah to absolutely everybody and anybody. And that's not in your best interest as a human being, and probably not in the best interest of your soon-to-be ex-partner, and definitely not in the best interest of the children if you've got any. So be really aware of who you're sharing the information with. And then finally, which is the drum that I beat, every day in this room is stay off social media. By all means, look at really lovely pictures of dogs or horses or whatever else on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, but do not put your own life out there. Keep that here for you, because I'm sure Ashley and Jodie will show this, it causes no end of issues that can't be deleted, unfortunately. People go, oh, well, I put it up and I deleted. The damage is done. So yeah, that's my biggest gripe and the thing that I bang on about the most. Stay away from social media. Use it for looking at dogs.
Right. Well, allow me to echo that. And anything you put on social media, let me scare a few people out there, I can get hold of it.
Yeah.
So you want to say something silly? You want me to put something under a judge's nose that doesn't make you look particularly nice? Don't bother.
Yeah,
Keep
agreed.
your own opinions to yourself. Go to the pub and have a good whinge with your friends.
Yeah, agreed.
Keep it to yourself, especially if there's shit. The amount of couples that unfortunately get so wrapped up in the upset and the hurt, and they don't see the emotional harm that does to children.
Yeah.
Please do yourselves a favour.
Yeah.
In terms of my top tips, taking legal advice is sensible. I'm bound to tell you that, however, so it's not the easiest thing to sort of be genuine about. So here's me being completely genuine. Not all lawyers are out to take your money. My main focus here is if you come in and you are miserable, when you walk out of the door and you're done a year later and you are smiling, I've done my job. I have no desire to take a penny more out of your pocket than is absolutely necessary. I would rather that you agree, let me draw it up and make it binding, and off you go. So please don't let there be a misconception that we are out to just make money from you, because I can assure you there are a lot of us that are not. And I love my job. I adore my job because I help people, not because of what I bring in, not because of everything else that comes with status and all that kind of stuff. It's because the amount of people I've seen at their lowest and then sent them off at their highest, that you can't replace that. You just can't. So
Agreed.
Yeah.
Anybody out there, any three of us are more than happy to help you at any stage.
Yeah, get in touch.
All you need to do is get in touch. So thank you both, ladies. I can't
You're
thank you
welcome.
enough. You've been excellent. So
Nice to
let me
see
just say, the next Breakup Club is on the 3rd of April. It's about parenting after divorce or separation. So it's a logical follow-on from this one. Anybody watching this one today, I would highly recommend you watch that one as well. It's been a pleasure talking to you. And if there's anything you need, you get in touch with us.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much, everybody. Bye-bye.